can sometimes feel like a lot, but you don't have to do it alone. I strongly believe that we're stronger together. Here, we're going to slow down, have real talks, make sense of things together, and explore ways to intentionally grow the life you want. We're going to talk about mental and physical health, relationships, money, work, and community. Welcome to Rooted in Intention with me, Karina Gomez. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Rooted in Intention. Thank you again for tuning in. And today I'm joined by a special guest, Hady Mendez, who recently released her book, Calladita No More, or Silent No More for those of you who don't know Spanish, and who is also a speaker, an ERG coach, and on top of that is the founder and CEO of Boldly Speaking. So thank you, Hady, for joining me today. And I feel like it's so timely that your book is coming out. And I feel like it's really a call to action for people to get to know themselves and reflect and step into their power. I know you started off the book really highlighting how you came to some moments where you realized that some things that you learned from family and from culture were holding you back. And at the same time, throughout the book, you mention how there is a lot of strengths and a lot of lessons that you also learned from family and from culture. And I thought it was so beautiful how you tied those things together and found the balance. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about when were some of those first moments where you really started realizing that you maybe had to start questioning some of the lessons and the messages and the beliefs that had been passed on to you?
Yeah, hi everybody, and thanks for having me. I appreciate you, Karina. Boy, as I think about that question, I feel like I probably accepted what was taught to me for a very long time. So most people are familiar with Calladita te ves más bonita. I actually did not grow up with that dicho. I grew up with en boca cerrada no entra mosca,
Mm.
which it's a similar kind of vibe, which is like keep your mouth shut so unpleasant things don't happen type of thing. So, and I carried that with me for a long time. And there were a lot of times where I wanted to say things, even when I was a younger, like maybe in elementary school, junior high school, and I didn't. And, I also was taught to respect elders. So like, I would never disrespect a teacher or a college professor or anything. Like I think maybe college was maybe, if I think about it, maybe college was where I started to be like, I don't know, but like I don't think that this is serving me. And I remember distinctly that I had a college professor who used to refer to me in class as hyper hottie.
What?
That's how he called me, hyper hottie. And then he didn't always refer to me that way. He used to call me Hady. Then de repente, one day he thought it was cute to call me hyper Hady. And I stopped participating in the class, not because I was like on strike, but just because I felt very uncomfortable because every time he called on me, he was calling me hyper Hady. So I just kind of stopped raising my hand, stopped engaging. And then one day he asked me after class, he said, "Can you stay?" And then he was like, "Why are you not engaging anymore? Like, why are you not participating?" And I said, "Because I don't like what you're calling me. Like, you call me that name makes me feel bad. I don't want to like participate." I don't remember, like, that's the gist of the conversation. And he felt really bad because he had no
Mm.
idea. I mean, he was a white man. I don't know. Like you have to have some level of self-awareness. How do you not know that that's like offensive? But like he claimed that he didn't know that that was offensive or that would be like hurtful to me. And I said, well, it's just you're putting me in a box. I think anything that puts me in a box is not necessarily gonna land well. And so he stopped. And the thing was, oh, sorry, I didn't mention the best part. Other people were calling me hyper hottie because of this guy. So like then my classmates were calling me that too. They're like, "Oh, hyper hottie," and I'm like, "Okay, everybody stop with the hyper hottie. Maybe I am hyper, but that's like none of like we don't need to like I guess call it out or whatever. Like there's a lot of other characteristics that we could play on. Anyway, he stopped after I had that conversation with him, and I ended up getting an A in the course. But I was like on a route to maybe like a B or a B plus because I was like I stopped participating in class. I never cut class, like I'm not that type of person, but
Mhm.
I didn't like being there.
Yeah. I can imagine how that's so uncomfortable.
It's like
And
quiet quitting. I basically quiet quit the class.
why do you think that name came to be? Was it because you were super excited and expressive?
I mean, I am. I think anybody, like if anybody's listening, they could tell that like I have a lot of enthusiasm and energy. And I think, maybe it came from that. But I also think he was trying to be cool. Like he was
Mm,
trying to like get like a reaction out of the crowd and like maybe people would find that funny and then they might like him more. And it's like, dude, don't be doing that at my expense. Like
mhm,
make fun of somebody else. I'm a good student. Don't fuck with
mhm,
me. Like there was just no need to go there with me. And I had a relationship with him outside of the classroom. So he was like the what do you call it? Like resident director at the dorm where I lived. So there was, the RAs, which were the students, and then there was a director, which was him. So he lived on the campus. And so and I lived in his dorm. So he knew me. He knew
mhm.
exactly who I was. He knew me from like around the way, so to speak. And I think he had a little confianza with me that he didn't need to have. I
Yeah.
didn't like that either because he thought it was cute. And he's like, oh, yeah, let's pick on her. Because, like, I guess he felt comfortable with me. And it was like, but that's not cool.
Mhm,
It was it was a very hurtful thing that he did. And he damaged the relationship too.
mhm.
I didn't like him after that. So and bosses do stuff like that was a college professor, but I think about it and bosses did stuff like that to me all the time. So they would
Yeah.
also play that little game where they would do something and um whether they were trying to gain credibility with other team members or whether, they were trying to exercise their power or whether, some other, thing that was to their advantage. I felt like sometimes I was collateral damage. And I think,
Mhm,
over the years, it wasn't like a moment. There were many moments where I was like, like I think, going back to your original question about like what made you change, when did you realize that you needed to like shed some of these limiting beliefs? I feel like it was over time. It
mhm,
happened many times. And
mhm,
it's like, what is it, death by a thousand cuts or whatever? Like I just
mhm,
kept saying, like, I kind of feel like I should be doing things differently. And I kind of feel like that could have gone better. And I feel like that could have gone differently. Or like, man, I think of the times that I wanted to say something back to a manager that said something to me that I thought was unfair or untrue. And sometimes I never said anything. And I was like, I was remembering in Boca Cera no entra mosca. In
mhm,
Boca Cera no entra mosca, just
mhm.
like don't say anything. Anyway, I could kick myself, and at the same time, I have compassion for young Hady who just was doing what she was told. And I think I had to really outgrow that. And eventually I did.
Yeah. And I feel like the lessons, they're always easier to see looking back.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things that if it's something that happens for the first time, you're a little taken aback. So naturally, we're not going to know how to navigate that situation when just
Yep.
like, oh, I don't like this nickname. And you're sensing that discomfort, but not exactly knowing what to do about it. And I
Yep.
think it was maybe even at least helpful that the professor came up to you and said, like, hey, I
I
noticed
know
that you're
it was because I
not
would have never said
saying.
anything. I think you're right, Karina. I think you're 1,000% correct that I didn't even advocate for myself. I had to be pressured into advocating for myself. So he was like, "What happened? Like you completely stopped participating?" And I said, "Well, ever since you gave me that name, like I don't like." And I probably didn't even offer that up in the beginning. Maybe I was just like, "Well, whatever." And then eventually he pressed on until I said it. So he invited me to self-advocate, and even in that, I think I wasn't comfortable with that. I didn't grow up exercising that muscle, and I didn't know how to use it, and it made me very uncomfortable like to me that felt like I was being disrespectful to him. Meanwhile, he was being disrespectful to me, but I was like so
Mhm.
worried about being disrespectful to him. It's just such a human, I guess human like how people relate to each other and all of that.
Mhm.
It's just so fascinating.
And I imagine that that experience maybe even started to shift a little bit in you of like, oh, if I raise and if I share that this is uncomfortable, that they could do something different. And I imagine that that could have been an empowering moment as well.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think, having experience with bullies, that and that's what it felt like to me, that he was being a bully. my prior experience to bullies up to that point have really been that if I said anything, they would do it more. So I tried
Mm.
to ignore it and just be like, I'm not engaging with this. And that's, I guess, another kind of coping mechanism. And like just hope that he would move on eventually because whatever, it wasn't phasing me. But anyway, but that's a very like kind of passive aggressive way of showing up. Like you hoping that something is going to stop happening or go away is not really a great solution. I
Mhm.
mean, every case is different, and I'm not going to say that that can't work some of the time, but I don't think by and large that that's a great way of showing up for yourself.
And I think that's where we could practice our own discernment of how can I show up? How do I want to show up? How do I want to have a conversation with someone based off of the relationship that you have with them and another experience? But switching gears a little bit towards the very end of your book, once you're kind of giving your thanks to people who were involved and that type of thing, I noticed that you shared that you were kind of thanking your family for kind of holding a straight face when you shared that you wanted to write a book because
Mhm.
you had already dreamed of being an author. Can you share a little bit more about that? When did you first have the inkling to write a book and what was going on in your mind? Like what subjects, what genre did you have in mind?
Yeah, and I still laugh because I have a sister who's like, someone told me the other day, they're like, so what does your family think about the book? And I'm like, well, it's kind of mixed. Like some of them are like really into it. Some of them are like, you wrote a book? Like, I don't think they're getting the the seriousness of this. I'm like, yes, it's on Amazon. Yes, you can go to bookshop.org and buy it. Go to your local bookstore and order it. Like, I don't think they're getting, I think they're thinking like, oh, Hadi's just, talking again. So it is funny. My older sister, I don't think has read it. She's like, I think I ordered it. And I'm like, I was like, I'll send you a copy. So funny. But anyway, I think two things happened at the same time. One is that I started to realize that I could have a broader impact if I wrote this book and I could reach more people, not just the people that hire me or the people that bring me in to talk to their ERGs or fireside chats or things like that, but I could really reach a much larger group of people. So I think the desire to have a bigger impact definitely played a role. And I feel like I saw other Latinas writing books and I was like, yo, this is it. Like this is happening. And I feel like up to that point, we had like Isabel Allende, like just like some really like big names and like, through the years, if you ever looked at like books written by Latinas, it was like the same, like 10 authors, like in perpetuity. And then like all of a sudden, maybe last 5 or 10 years, it's like there's a lot of us. There's so many of us. Like for Hispanic Heritage Month this year, there was just like a multitude. And we're writing all the genres: fiction, nonfiction, romance, mystery, horror, all the things, and children's books. So I just feel like somebody like was like I think somebody was like, yo, like we should be up in here doing these, writing these stories, telling our unique stories. And I think like somebody got the memo and then the rest of us were like, yeah, we should do this. And so I feel like watching other Latinas that I knew, personally knew, people that I had worked with or have, somehow crossed paths with, watching them write their books and have success and see the impact they were making, like it made it just so much more realistic as something that I could do. Because I feel like, and I think, the hybrid publishing is pretty new, self-publishing is pretty new. Usually it's like traditional publishing. You got to wait for like someone to tap you on the shoulder and be like, here's a deal and all that. And it takes a long time. And there's like only a select few that make the cut. And now you have a lot more agency to be like, I want to write a book, I'll self-publish, or I want to write a book and I'll just pay a hybrid publisher to help me get it out the door. And so I think those new ways of, getting books into the world have a lot to do with a lot more of us being out here. It's more affordable too, because it's very, to hire an agent and, get be able to put like a manuscript together and all of that. If you're not working, that can be quite an expensive undertaking. And so hybrid publishing, I think, makes it more affordable and also quicker. It's quicker to market. So like I published a book start to finish in 11 months. If you work
Wow.
through a traditional like publisher, it's years. It's not months, it's
Mhm.
years.
And I think
So
there's so much power in what you're saying, where before it might be you were kind of waiting for someone to
yeah,
be
you had
like,
to be
we like your
tapped.
idea. And now
Yeah,
you're
you're
just like,
special. Now you're like, oh well, I know I'm
I could do
special.
it.
So
And I
a
know
little
I've
delusional,
talked.
but sometimes the delusion helps.
Yes, absolutely. Like the internet says, go 100% Delulu if you truly believe in your idea.
Yeah, yep.
And
You gotta have a little delulu in your running through your veins.
and I know I've talked to people who still aspire to write a book in still like different genres and poetry and that type of thing. Can you share a little bit about what your process looked like at the beginning? I know you shared that it was an 11-month process in total, but I imagine that the beginning was probably the hardest from like, I want to write this book. What were some of the steps that went
Yeah.
after that?
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to write a book. I knew I wanted to include refranes or dichos or sayings. So I knew those two things, and I knew I wanted it to be about my experience in the workplace. So that was sort of high level what I knew. And I didn't know much more than that when I started a program. I started like a coaching program. So I work with a book coach, and I was part of a cohort for a program, an accelerator program called Idea to Draft. And the notion behind it is that you have an idea, and the program, it's a 6-month program, gets you all the way
Mm,
to your first draft of the book. It's a nonfiction program. So all of us, all the people in the cohort were working on a nonfiction book, but mostly non-related. Like we were all writing about different things. And anyway, so then, it's like ideation and like book concept and who you're writing for and what's the key message?
mm,
What are some sub messages? What do you want your reader to feel? Who's your primary reader? Who's your secondary reader? So it's a lot of like when people submit like this initial proposal to a traditional publisher, they have to like basically define the book and write a few chapters. I didn't write a few chapters for this part. It was just a book concept, but it's like probably about a 20-page document that just really outlines what the book is about. So once
mm,
you've defined all of that up front, and only when you've defined all of that up front, then you start writing, which I guess is not how everybody does it. Because some people, they're like, they have that in their head, or maybe they haven't thought about it, or maybe, they're when they're writing, they're like, oh, I didn't even think that I was going to be thinking about this kind of reader
mm,
or whatever, So like we sort all of that out up front, and I think that allows for a much smoother process. And for me, it did because once I had the outline and the concept down, I wrote the book. I wrote the
mhm,
book in like 2 or 3 months. So for me, it really made a difference to have all of that defined up front. So I would highly recommend that because I think it saves you time later. We didn't write for like 2 months in the class. It was a 6-month course, and for the first 2 months, we never wrote. We were
mhm,
just defining,
mhm,
and then writing. And then once you have the manuscript ready, which is like the first draft, it has to go to an editor. And there's a couple of editors. I had a content editor and then I had a copy editor, and both of mine were Latinas, so that was like kind of a big thing for me. I wanted
mhm,
Latinas to be part of the project in every possible way, so I made sure I got Latina editors, and I got them from other authors that had used them, which was
mhm,
great. So they came recommended, and then after editing, you go through proofreading, and that's when I started working with my publisher, and they helped me to proofread the manuscript. I also, at around that time, started working with my illustrator. So the
mhm,
illustrator put together the cover for the book, and that was also Latina. She's an artist from Argentina, and she did the cover for me. Also came recommended from another Latina author. So it's like very incestuous in
mhm.
terms of like we're all like using the same people, but that's great because it's like we all got a vibe. And then after proofreading comes typesetting, and typesetting is like when it's like the book layout type of thing. So it's like no longer just a Word document. It's like now it's like it looks like a book. And yeah, and then yeah, and there's other stuff too. I'm giving you the high level stuff, but working with the publisher, working with the illustrator, working with the editors, and then there's the PR and the marketing. I had a PR coach. I had a project manager that was helping me with the book launch,
Mhm,
that's been helping me with partnerships, that helped me with my lunch party. I have a media manager. These are all Latinas, by the way. The
mhm,
media manager is helping me, try to get media, basically show up on like, I was on Fierce by Me Too. I was on the Poderistas platform. Yeah, so I've been on a bunch of platforms. I was on the Latino magazine. It's like a publication, and I wrote an article for them. And yeah, so my PR person helped me with that, and then like doing book giveaways. I mean, it's like just I could go on and on. It's like very involved, and it continues to be very involved because once the book is in the world, and the book is in the world,
I'm gonna
Calladita no
adhere
more, baby.
to
Yes.
it.
Well, once the book is in the world, then it's like you got to get the book into as many hands as you can. You want people to write reviews, you want people to engage with it. I'm trying to see if I can get more coaching clients out of it. I want to build community from it. So, maybe I got another book in me. So, it just keeps going. It's a lot of work and it doesn't stop. And I'm applying for awards now, so that's like the other thing.
I imagine it was so helpful being in community. I know it's a project where you were working alongside others that were also working on a project, and I know that I found that usually so helpful in the past because you're all going through the same process. And I'm curious a little bit about your mindset during that process because you talk quite a bit about mindset within your book and
Mhm.
when working within even the corporate space, how you put these different things into practice that allowed you to show up fully. And I'm curious, as you were writing the book, what were some of the top mindset shifts that you had to make or some of the mindset reminders that you had to come back to
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I joined the cohort, the accelerator, in October of last year. So it was before the election. And about a month into the accelerator program, the election happened. And I was like losing my mind. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to write this book anymore. I'm just like, this is
Mm,
just not the time for it. And like everyone was super encouraging in that community. And they're like, no, Hadi, like now your voice is needed more than ever. Like you can't like this is the time. I think they convinced me that where I thought it was like there's bigger fish to fry. They were like, no, but you could contribute, to the conversation and to your community in a moment where the community really needs it. And I don't think we knew where we were going to be today.
mhm,
So like we didn't know that there were going to be all these ICE raids and people getting, disappeared on the streets and all this other, children being like attacked in schools and all this other things. So we didn't know that. We didn't have the foresight to know exactly what direction the country was going to move in. I think we all knew it would not be good. But in light of the fact that it was not going to be good, they said your voice is more important. So they
mhm,
convinced me, it was the community that convinced me to keep going. And so I would say that was a big thing. And
mhm,
then the book served as a big it gave me hope during a time during these last 8, 9 months, however long this is, it feels like an eternity, but
mhm,
these 1,000 years, the book gave me hope that our voices and our stories matter, that we can't be erased, that we need to own our narrative more than ever, that despite all the noise and all the horrible things happening, if we find ourselves in the workplace, we still have to like, try to get promoted. We still need to make money. We still need to, show up for other people. We still need to show up for ourselves. So none of that really changes in this kind of environment. If anything, it becomes more important. So I think it gave me like this is my way to contribute to the conversation. I do go to protest, but like this is another way for me to protest, so to speak.
mhm.
And it gave me a lot of hope during a time that otherwise would have just really been a dark time for me. It still was not a good time, but I think the book lifted me up and working on the book lifted me up and, somewhat distracted me as well. Like I was, neck deep in stuff at all times. I didn't have the time to just wallow and be like, oh, woe was me, woe was us, woe is our community. I was just like, we got to get this book out the door. People need to read it. And we need to, like, I think it's a hopeful book. And that was definitely my intention when I wrote it to make it a hopeful book. So I feel like I want to give hope to our community members. I got it out in time for Hispanic Heritage Month. And it was with the intent of giving us, encouraging us and providing us with some light during a dark time.
Yeah, I think there's so much power in storytelling and sharing our stories and amplifying others because to what you were saying, with even coming to the point where you're just like, I want to write this book, just seeing how others kind of helped influence that and made it seem possible for you, where you're just like, oh, I saw other Latinas publishing books. You're like, maybe I can do this as well. And I think one of the things that was really powerful for me, especially during these times right now, is when DEI efforts are being cut. I think your book is really a like call to action for how we could tap into our power and show up in the workspace and how it might look a little bit different. And to what you were saying about the protests, but then also being an active member in different areas. And I think this sharing our stories is one of those ways where we can continue to elevate our community and help people feel empowered in their own story as well.
Yeah, I definitely wanted people to feel empowered. There's a lot of in the book, Nadia is coming to save us. Like we have to be really steadfast in the things that we want and we're hoping for. We need to stay ready. We need to be manifesting the things that we want. We need to ask for help and support. We need to show up for other people. We need to be amplifying each other's voices. Like I feel like it is a positive message in all of it. The content is evergreen, if you will. Like all of that stuff is still true today, regardless of what's happening on the streets of our country. Like, and maybe it's even more necessary now. And hopefully it's not only a guide for people in the community, but also for the people who want to support Latinas and women of color. Maybe, my hope is they'll pick up the book too and understand a little bit about what it's like to walk in our shoes and maybe show up differently for us.
At this point, through your coaching and your company, you've worked with a lot of Latinas in this space. I'm curious if you can share a little bit about what happens within your organization and what are some of the top things that you see in people's journey from when they come to work with you to the end of the process.
Well, mostly still, I get most of my business from ERGs, and a lot of them are Latinx ERGs. Some of them are women ERGs, and some of it is just like an organization that needs some support for all of their ERGs. But I work a lot with underestimated people, people who identify as underestimated, underrecognized, underrepresented in some way. And my hope is, I'm giving them, hey, like me too. That was me too. Like, and it's still me too. It's not like me too before. It's like this is me too. And I've learned some lessons, and I feel like let me share what I've learned. Let me share ways that I've coped or managed or how I've navigated some of these situations because maybe it could help you to navigate them too. And then I have the individual, like what I call one-on-one power sessions. And it's just like, I've seen and heard everything. I think a lot of people, they're waiting. And this was me too. This is the most common thing I hear. People are waiting to have like the magical day when their boss suddenly realizes that they're great. They think that that day is going to come, that someday someone's going to come and be like, oh my God, I didn't even realize it. You're fantastic. Let's swoop you in and get you promoted and get you more money. And that really doesn't happen. Maybe in like a fairy tale. That's like the fairy tale ending. I think realistically, we have to always be out there advocating for ourselves. We need to notice when maybe people are not, recognizing the contributions we're making. And, like our contributions are going unacknowledged,
Mhm.
when we're being silenced in some way, when we're being dismissed, when, we try to contribute at meetings and people kind of like poo-poo our ideas. We hope that some of these things are just going to stop happening. And it's probably not going to just stop happening until we do something about it. And that's I think the most powerful message in the book is that we know the system is broken. None of this is fair. None of this should be happening to us, but it is. And so if we start with that premise of just acknowledging that this is an unfair situation, but it is nevertheless the reality of our situation, I think, and then go from there, I think that's more helpful because it's like, yeah, it is. It's fucked up that this is our situation, that we get paid practically half of what other people get paid, that we don't get promoted at the same rate, that we don't have the same representation in senior leadership. And that is all of that is so messed up. But like that's the reality. So then what do we do with that reality? What is the power and what are the things we can do to change that? And I would argue that there are some things we can do. It doesn't mean that everything's going to be perfect, but it does mean that maybe, like when I say I want to get promoted, trust me, I am that squeaky wheel. I will be getting promoted. Come hell or high hook by hook or by crook, I will be getting promoted. Some people don't like it and they're like, esta, mira esta, like presentar or like exigiendo. And it's like, listen, you don't seem to value my contributions any other way. So I'm going to have to like demand it pretty
Mhm.
much. I'm going to have to say, here are my receipts. Here
Mhm.
are my receipts. They're probably better than the receipts of the person that got promoted last time. Could we make sure I get promoted,
Mhm.
this upcoming cycle? So like receipts are very important. And I talk about it in the book a lot. Like you got to not only advocate for yourself, but you have to make sure that you are promoting yourself as much as possible and making sure that people understand the contributions you're making, that people are acknowledging it, and also recognize that sometimes that comes with a little power. And I talk specifically about a situation where I was part of an executive committee, like this meeting that would happen. And I was like, I knew a lot of people were intimidated by the people in that meeting, and I was one of those people. But over time, I realized that I was working on the projects that made them look good. And I was like, they're still gonna like. I was like, they should not be nasty to me because I'm the one. I know everything about that project, and I'm the
Mhm.
one making the project successful, and I'm the one delivering it on time and on schedule. So if anything, you should be really nice to me
Mhm.
because I'm the one making you look good. So eventually, I realized that the tables were turning a little bit, and I kind of stepped into that, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm in the meeting too, and I'm like, yeah, well, we're going to need more money if we're going to get that done, or I need more resources, or I need this. This is the kind of support I'm looking for. And anyway, I felt like I turned the tables a little bit on them. And we need to know when to turn the tables. We're so used to being like the underdog and the person that's like always on the, the receiving end of like scraps, that we settle for these scraps when we should be demanding the things that we rightfully have earned and deserve. And
Mhm.
so I feel like that, it's all of it is just, I think, noticing what's happening, being, a keen observer of your environment and the dynamics in your environment. And
Mhm.
also, again, having those receipts, promoting yourself at all the time, reminding people of the things, great things you do. And I think, starting to really see yourself as that badass person that is worthy of the respect of her peers and good things, other good
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. As I was reading about some of your stories, I was just in some of them I found myself just resonating so much of just like, yes, same. And in others, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe like these things happen. Like it's like what you're saying, the reality of some things. And one of the stories that I was really taken aback by was you sharing why you didn't get a promotion in one of the cases was because you simply didn't ask. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, going back to what you were saying of no one's gonna come in and save you. And it's just
Yeah.
being able to tap into what do I want, knowing that this is possible, because I think that's sometimes another thing of just not knowing what the process looks like and
Yep.
being able to like sit with the I want a promotion. I'm going to have a discussion around this and being able to navigate the corporate world, the nonprofit world in that space. I think it's true in like a lot of industries and being able to show up and own the work that you are doing. And
Yep.
I think one of the other things that you also shared was in addition to stepping in is also knowing when to step out and knowing when maybe it's time to make those shifts and walk away from situations.
Yep. Yeah, that's so true. And it's true. Like sometimes it's like you got to take a hint. And there's a when I started off my career in consulting, and the joke was that if you ever got assigned a special project, that means you were like a hop, skip, and a jump from getting fired. Like that you never wanted a special. And I thought a special project was good. I was like, oh wow, they're working on that special project. It's like, yeah, that they're about to get fired.
Yeah.
So the special projects are usually not a good sign. But there's other signs, people excluding you from meetings or people like disregarding you. I had a situation where I got not demoted, but they restructured me under someone who was my peer. So he was someone that we were like doing the same work. And then they said, guess what? You work for him now. And I'm like, but why? Like that didn't even make sense to me. And the guy was like, he didn't know what to do with himself because he was like, I don't know why they did this. I'm so sorry. Like, I totally respect you. Like, you're, anyway, he handled it as gracefully as he could. But all those were signs for me that it was time for me to go. And so over time, it's a lot of this is just like learning as you go. And that's why I'm sharing it now because it's like, don't go through 20 years. I'm telling you right now. So you could go
Hmm.
then through 5 years and read the book and then you're good.
Yeah.
But like over time, I learned that some of these little things, they weren't good signs. I remember I didn't write about this in the book, but I had another employer who wrote me up for something that I didn't do directly. It was something someone on my team did, but I got written up for it. And I said, I was like, I think it's time for me to go because I'm
Mm,
like, they're, like somehow I got swept up into this drama, and I'm like,
mm,
but P.S. they made me fire that person.
mm,
So something that person did, they considered to be like a fireable offense, and they made me fire the employee, and then they wrote me up and said, this happened under your watch. And I
mm,
was like, oh my God. I'm like, I think I need to leave. Like, I was
mm,
like, this is not good.
mhm,
So I do feel like, sometimes things happen and you have to really like, A, trust your gut, and B, also like talk to people and make sure like, like you get opinions of people that could tell you like, yeah, that's not a good sign, or that, like people are more than willing to share their point of view. So you could always like check in with other people and people you trust.
mhm,
But it's nice to have community at work for that reason, to just be like, I don't know, like, do I need to be worried about this? And it's like,
mhm.
yeah, girl, you do.
Yeah.
Yes, you do. Or maybe not. But like, yeah, I do feel it's about boundaries, and it's about just, I think a lot of it is trusting yourself and just
Mm,
saying like, I deserve more. And I believe that I could get more somewhere else. And I trust that I have the knowledge and the competency and the experience to get a better position somewhere else, or at least as good position, but maybe a better position somewhere else. And I'm gonna bet on myself. And I've had to do that so many times in my career.
yeah. I think that trusting yourself is so important. And also having a work bestie. I think a study came out recently
Yeah.
about the power of having a work bestie. And that's kind of what was coming to mind as you were sharing that, like,
Yeah.
this doesn't feel good. What do you think? And then sometimes
Yeah.
being
Because
able to like think those things together is just like, okay, yeah, my gut
I
feeling
would
was
say,
right about this.
yeah. And I would say, if you can make it somebody that shares your identity, that might be a little bit better. Because I've had work besties that were white guys, and their experience is not like ours. And sometimes having, talking to a Black woman or Latina woman or another woman of color, it was a little bit closer to my reality. So yeah, I would, and I just think that's true. Like, I don't have like a data to prove it, but I can just tell you that I feel like that part of it is true, that if you have a trusted person that shares your identity, I think that's going to come as the closest to maybe, the reality of your lived experience.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing a little bit more about your journey and some additional takeaways from your experience in the corporate world. And you alluded to this a little bit that you might have a little bit more in you to share in another book. Are there any things that you had to cut out from this book that you were really sad to let go of?
No, I didn't cut anything out. There were some stories or refranes that didn't make it, but it wasn't like anybody cut it out per se. It was just like it didn't go. Like, I had, once I had my theme and like my message, I had to kind of align the chapters and everything with that. And some stuff kind of just didn't make the cut. So yeah, I feel pretty good. Yeah, and the other thing, I really wanted the book to be positive. And so some stuff I felt like, I'm like, this is just going to take us down a path that I don't really want to go
Mm,
down for purposes, in this book. Maybe there's another book where that message, where that story makes more sense, or maybe that's just a story that I keep to myself. But I didn't include every story, and most of that was by design.
that makes sense. And are there any other, I guess, lessons that you want to leave listeners with, either about navigating the corporate world or maybe entrepreneurship, writing a book?
Wow, that's a lot of space. I would just say that it's our time to shine. I talk about this in the book. We have been ignored and dismissed, and you know, yeah, just like there's so many times where I have felt invisible, like
Mm,
quite literally invisible in a space. And sometimes it's because I'm the only one, and sometimes it was because I was silent, but like eventually I wasn't, and people got to know me, and I got to know people, and I really, I developed a lot of confidence, and that confidence
mm,
allowed me to show up even bigger and better in more places. And I would say, I hope that for all of us, I hope that all of us really have the opportunity to shine, to have our gifts noticed, to have our gifts be celebrated, and to just have us feel like, we're appreciated, that we're seen, that we're valued, and that we're celebrated in the workplace for the value that we bring, because we do bring value. And it's sad that we have to feel like we don't. And it's sad that we don't get paid as much, and that's a very low key way of the world saying it's okay, but it's not as good as everybody else. And it's like,
Mhm.
it is. We are as good as everybody else. The work we do is as good as everybody else. We're just not
Mhm.
getting paid the
Mhm.
same. But we deserve it. And we should continue to contribute, to bring our gifts, to shine our light, to celebrate one another. And whether it happens in our lifetime or not, we're gonna get the things that we deserve. And so we just need to keep acting like it
Mhm.
because we do deserve it. So we just need to act like we do
Yeah.
always.
And one more question is you were saying that because I know sometimes with a culture that really values humility, feeling like you're coming into your light can feel a little bit uncomfortable. Do you feel like you had a little bit of tug of war with showing up fully and talking about your accomplishments and kind of navigating almost this like be quiet, be humble?
Yeah, I think that I needed to find a way to promote myself and advocate for myself in ways that were authentic to me.
Mhm.
So the way I saw it modeled by white men and women in the workplace did not feel authentic to me. It felt I was like, I could never do that. I could never do what they're doing. Like it
Mhm.
just felt so out of character and so not my voice and so not how I am. So I had to learn how to do it in the Hady way, like kind of brag about myself in a way that felt comfortable for Hady,
Mhm.
and self-promote in ways that felt true to Hady. And once I was able to discover those ways and be like, yep, this feels very authentic and
Mhm.
genuine, then it was easy to do. I needed it to feel like honest and that it was coming from me in a way that felt true to me and not in the way other people were doing it. And like I said, unfortunately, the models that I had were people that were not like me. So I just needed to discover like there's a way to do it in Spanglish with a little sazon,
Mhm.
curse a little because I like cursing, but like I'm never cursing at anybody, I'm just like cursing because it's a little bit of emphasis, a little bit more colorful. And just like really honest, not like being down on myself, but also just acknowledging I'm not perfect. I'm still a work in progress, but like I still have good things that I can celebrate today. And
Mhm.
that feels honest to me, not like I'm great. I'm
Mhm.
great all the time. No, you're
Yeah.
not. Shut
Yeah.
up. Stop
Yeah.
lying. Yeah, and
Yeah.
even like inject humor. Like I'm definitely like I like making people laugh. So I'll always try to. That's like part of my brand is just to like let people's guard down and be a little bit fun and like very approachable and all of that. I think it comes through in my writing, and I just always wanted to come through in everything that I do.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Hadi, for owning that within yourself because I think that makes space for like myself and others to also show up in the ways that we want to and not because this
Exactly.
is the like standard of how people have shown up in the workspace in life before. And I think there's so much power in that because, yeah, I don't think any of us want to be doing things that feel inauthentic because deep down, I think they feel icky and
Yes, that's the word.
yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. And for folks that are tuning in, feel free to leave a review and let us know what you thought.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Rooted in Intention. Until next time, and remember to keep showing up for the life, relationships, and community you want. Now go, grow the life you want